Chapter 1. The moment an enraged patient's family member burst into the office with a knife, my fiancée, Victoria Ainsworth, frantically dragged her, one that got away, Ethan Jones, out to safety. To protect Ethan, she instinctively locked the door from the outside, taking him to treat a minor scratch, completely forgetting I was still inside. The family member she had provoked stabbed me multiple times, and I collapsed in a pool of my own blood. Later, as my life hung by a thread, it took the city's entire blood bank to barely save me. Meanwhile, she was out getting takeout and seeing a movie with Ethan. Eth was really shaken up this time, so I have to be there for him. Besides, you're not dead, isn't it enough that I'll show up on time for the wedding the day after tomorrow? But what she didn't know was that for the wedding in 2 days, the bride had already been replaced. And I was going to publicly expose her and Ethan Jones for their surgical malpractice and their reckless disregard for human life on the 26th day after I was transferred from the ICU to a regular ward. All my colleagues came to visit me. But my fiancée, Victoria Ainsworth, the one I had risked my life for, never once showed her face. It wasn't until the day of my discharge that she finally, impatiently, answered my call, but only because she had taken my car. "Sincere, will you give it a rest? I already told you I'm taking care of Eth these days." He was terrified by that patient's family member. "Why do you keep calling me? Are you trying to hound me to death?" Hearing her imperious tone, even though I had already mentally prepared myself to end things, her attitude still cut me deep. We were childhood sweethearts, having known each other for nearly 30 years. For as long as I can remember, my world revolved around her. I shared everything good with her, and even went into the medical field for her sake. She was moved, accepted my proposal, and promised to live a happy life with me forever. But everything changed when her one that got away, Ethan Jones, returned to the country and started working at the same hospital. Even when Ethan made a mistake and prescribed the wrong medication, Victoria, who had always been a stickler for the rules, didn't report him. Instead, she would risk her own career to cover for him. And when that patient's family member stormed the office with a knife, I fought to get her out safely. But the moment she was out of danger, she grabbed Ethan and ran for her life. She locked me inside, watching as the family member she had enraged stabbed me. She ignored my cries for help, her only concern being a small scratch on Ethan's finger. That day, I was critically injured, hovering on the brink of death. The city's top medical professors rushed to save me. It took the entire state's blood bank and a complete blood replacement 3 times over to barely pull me back from the edge. My fingers clenched into a fist. After a long pause, I finally said, "Sorry to bother you." Before she could lash out again, I hung up and took a cab home. On the way, I sent a message to the wedding planner. "Date's the same, the bride is different." The day after tomorrow was supposed to be my wedding to Victoria. Now I was replacing her with another girl, Grace Miller. She had pursued me for many years. When my life was on the line, it was she who raced against time to get the blood bank resources from the state to save me. In that moment, my decision was made. When I got home, I assumed Victoria would be out with Ethan. I never expected to walk in and see Victoria and Ethan in matching pajamas, curled up on the sofa watching a movie. They were feeding each other chips and fruit, laughing and chatting about the plot. They only looked up when they heard the door open. When Victoria recognized me, her expression soured instantly. "You didn't say you were coming back," she said, annoyed. Her accusatory tone made it clear she was blaming me for interrupting their private time. So this was what she meant by taking care of a patient. I suppressed the bitterness in my heart and walked towards the bedroom without looking at them. But as I entered, I saw men's clothes scattered across the bed. They obviously weren't mine. Victoria appeared at the doorway, looking a bit uncomfortable. "Eth has no one at his place, so to make it easier to take care of him, I let him stay in your room," she said stiffly. "You were in the hospital anyway, so it was just sitting empty." As she spoke, I opened the closet to put my own clothes away. But the closet, which used to be full of my things, was empty, save for a few of Ethan's shirts. I scanned the room again and finally realized. All of my belongings were gone. "Your things are in the small storage room. When Eth came to stay, I moved your stuff out." Perhaps out of guilt, Victoria's tone was impatient. "You know what happened with that family member. Even though the attacker was caught, there's no guarantee other family members won't come looking for trouble. I was worried Eth would be targeted, so I let him stay for a couple more days." Can you not be so petty? Eth is a guest. Just let him have the room. You can stay in the storage room. She frowned, her attitude hardening. The small storage room was actually a windowless, lightless closet. But I had no intention of arguing with her over the room. I was moving out anyway. Whatever you think is best. I turned and left the bedroom. Ethan walked over, putting on a show of caution. Big C, if you're not okay with it, I can stay in the storage room. Before I could say anything, Victoria cut him off. No way. Eth, you have a fear of the dark. Sincere is tough as nails. A few days won't hurt him. Sincere, you wouldn't be shameless enough to fight Eth for the room, would you? With her putting it like that, I wasn't about to make a fool of myself. It was my last night here. It didn't matter. Seeing me nod, a satisfied smile finally graced Victoria's face. You've been much more obedient. After a few days in the hospital, go get settled. I'll make dinner and nurse you back to health. I don't want you showing up to the wedding the day after tomorrow looking all sickly looking. You'll embarrass me. She raised an eyebrow and smiled at me before heading to the dining area. Ethan shot me a provocative glance and followed her, saying he'd help. A bitter taste filled my mouth, but I didn't plan on telling her she wasn't the bride. As I was heading to the storage room, I suddenly received a message. The real culprits behind the attack that hurt you were Victoria Ainsworth and Ethan Jones. In an instant, my heart dropped. Chapter 2. The message was from Leo Davis, a colleague I was close with at the hospital. He had found the security footage of the entire surgery. Victoria was supposed to be the lead surgeon, but she let Ethan take over for practice. After Ethan made a critical error, she stepped in to salvage the situation. But at a crucial moment, while she was using a medical instrument, Ethan set it to the wrong level. The patient went into shock and died on the table. Afterward, fearing the damage to her reputation, Victoria told everyone it was a normal death during surgery. Leo knew how deeply I'd loved Victoria for years. So instead of sending the video to the hospital board, he sent it to me, letting me decide what to do. There's something else, his next message read. That attack was meant for Ethan. When the man burst into the office, Victoria knew who he was after. To protect Ethan, she deliberately misled the attacker into thinking you were the lead surgeon. That's why you got stabbed so many times. This meant that from the very beginning, Victoria had intended for me to be a shield for Ethan. At that moment, my heart sank into a bottomless abyss. My fingers wouldn't stop trembling. The woman I had loved for 30 years had tried to have me killed for another man, and I had foolishly rushed in to save her. I was such an idiot. After the endless disappointment and rage came an uncontrollable hatred. I clenched my fists, my resolve hardening. Victoria and Ethan would pay for everything they had done. After thanking Leo, I didn't rush to send the evidence to the hospital. The wedding was the day after tomorrow. Hospital leadership and many of our mutual friends and family would be there. That would be the perfect time to reveal the truth. I slept in the storage room that night, or rather, I didn't sleep at all. I was tormented by nightmares of being stabbed, over and over again. In my dreams, Victoria held Ethan's arm, laughing wildly from the other side of the glass office door. She snarled at me, "Just die if you die. I can be with Ethan forever and ever." As I lay bleeding out, she even picked up the bloody knife and walked towards me, step by step. No, I woke up with a start, drenched in a cold sweat. I instinctively reached for my phone and saw it was already past 7 in the morning. I got out of bed and walked into the living room. Victoria, who usually slept in, was already up and for the first time in ages was making breakfast. Ethan came out of the bathroom, the collar of his pajama shirt open, revealing a conspicuous mark on his neck. I knew exactly what it was, and I knew it was Victoria's favorite spot. Seeing me, Victoria's smile faltered for a second before she put on a look of disdain. "You slept like a log last night. I couldn't wake you up no matter how much I called, so Ethan and I just ate without you. Go on, get washed up, breakfast is ready." I had slept terribly and knew perfectly well she hadn't called for me. It was just an excuse. She never intended for me to interrupt their meal together. But I didn't bother calling her out. I glanced at the breakfast on the table. It was all greasy food that I hated, clearly not made for me. "You guys go ahead, I'm not hungry," I said dismissively. As I was about to enter the bathroom, Victoria's face darkened. She followed me, her voice sharp with displeasure. "Sincere? What's that supposed to mean? Is this because I didn't call you for dinner last night? You were the one who was fast asleep. Who are you giving that attitude to?" Ethan quickly stepped in to play peacemaker, gently taking Victoria's arm. "It's okay, Victoria. Sincere is probably just upset because I'm here. It's my fault. It's not right for an outsider like me to be staying here. He looked at me with a good-natured expression. Sincere, please eat. I'll leave. The last thing I want is for you two to fight because of me. Before I could respond, Victoria's expression grew even uglier. She clutched Ethan's arm, her voice a mix of anger and sympathy. Eth, you're too kind. That will only make him push his luck. Forget about him. Let's eat, let him starve for all I care. She shot me a cold glare and kicked the bathroom door. It slammed shut with a loud bang. I let out a breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. After I washed up, I went back to pack my things. Passing through the living room, I saw Victoria on the phone, looking anxious. What? I'll be right there. She turned to Ethan. Eth, there's been a car crash on Springfield Avenue. The hospital needs me there immediately. You're coming with me. She grabbed a jacket from the room and put it on. Then she handed Ethan a matching men's version. That jacket was mine. A 6th anniversary gift from Victoria. Put this on. It's cold outside. She carefully zipped up Ethan's jacket. When she noticed me, she rolled her eyes, said nothing, and walked out the door with him. Their figures from behind, clad in matching jackets, looked just like a couple. And I was the outsider. In the past, I would have been heartbroken, wondering why I could never earn Victoria's affection. But now, I just found it ironic. I pushed the thought aside and went to pack. I had just finished putting my things in a suitcase when my phone rang. It was Victoria. Her voice was urgent and commanding. I don't care what you're doing, get to the hospital right now. We have to save the patient. Chapter 3. As a doctor, saving lives is our calling. Whatever personal issues I had with Victoria, I had to get there as soon as possible. When I arrived, the area outside the operating room was swarmed with the patient's family and media reporters. Victoria rushed out, grabbed me, and pulled me toward the OR. Hurry, Sincere, the patient is fading fast. After scrubbing in and entering, I assessed the patient's condition and asked the nurses what had happened. It didn't take long to figure it out. Ethan had screwed up again. He had acted rashly without understanding the situation, turning a salvageable leg injury into a severe fracture. Now the patient was not only facing amputation but was also at risk of dying. Ethan was hyperventilating in a corner, terrified. Victoria stood beside me, barking orders. Sincere, what are you standing there for? Save him, don't ask who caused this. Just do something. There are reporters everywhere outside. If something happens, our reputations will be ruined. I looked at her, frantic and disheveled. The reason Victoria was so desperate wasn't for the patient's well-being, but for her and Ethan's reputations. I ignored her and calmly instructed the nurses, beginning the emergency procedure. My body hadn't fully recovered, and the high-intensity surgery was taking its toll on me. It took a full 3 hours. The moment I declared the surgery a success, my legs gave out and I nearly collapsed. But Victoria, who was standing right next to me, didn't even try to catch me. Instead, she shoved me aside in her excitement and rushed to Ethan's side. It worked. The surgery was a success. Eth, she cried out. This is great. They wept with joy. I, on the other hand, was nearly knocked to the floor. Thankfully, a quick-thinking nurse caught me. I took a deep breath, about to leave the operating room. But Victoria and Ethan beat me to it. They walked out to face the throng of reporters and family members. Smiling, they announced, "The patient is saved. There will be no long-term effects, and no amputation is needed. That's wonderful. You're miracle workers. Thank you." Thank you so much. All the reporters and family members directed their gratitude toward the two of them. Victoria never mentioned my name, giving all the credit to Ethan. Ethan accepted the praise shamelessly. A doctor's duty is to care for their patients. We were just doing our job. The young nurse beside me was furious and wanted to speak up for me, but I shook my head. The entire surgery was on camera. The more they flaunted now, the harder the fall would be later. Once the reporters had dispersed, Victoria found me alone. She looked at me with satisfaction and smiled. Sincere, you did a great job today. Eth doesn't have the same list of accomplishments that you do. He really needs these accolades. I thank you on his behalf. I'll be there on time for the wedding tomorrow. I'll be your bride. She said it as if she were giving me a reward. My smile didn't reach my eyes. I just nodded. Okay. That night, I didn't go home, using wedding preparations as an excuse. I stayed at the hospital, compiled all the evidence of the malpractice incident caused by Victoria and Ethan, and sent it to my wedding planner. The next morning, I arrived at the wedding venue. I received a call from Victoria. Postpone the wedding by half an hour. I'm waiting for Eth. He's not up yet. I gave a non-committal reply. Since she wasn't the bride, it didn't matter if she was late. As long as she showed up to face judgment, that was all that mattered. The ceremony proceeded. Under the officiant's guidance, my new wife, Grace, and I were about to exchange rings. Just then, Victoria, dressed in a wedding gown, walked in hand with Ethan. Seeing the scene on the stage, her face twisted in shock. Sincere? I'm not even here yet. Who gave you permission to start the wedding? Chapter 4. Victoria let go of Ethan and hiked up her dress, striding quickly onto the stage. She stared at Grace, who was standing beside me, in disbelief. Her voice trembled with rage. Who is she? Sincere, are you so angry about me giving Eth credit for the surgery that you'd hire another woman just to spite me? She deliberately lowered her voice, afraid others might hear. But her furious expression exposed her rage and how utterly thrown she was. The guests below began to murmur amongst themselves. What was going on? Why were there two brides? Ethan walked onto the stage and stood by Victoria's side, a look of profound disappointment on his face. Sincere, this is going too far. Do you have any idea how much Victoria loves you? How could you marry another woman just to humiliate her? What kind of man are you? He gently patted Victoria's shoulder as he spoke. Then he turned to me, his voice grave. You owe Victoria an explanation for this. Otherwise, even if she forgives you, I couldn't help but laugh coldly. What a shameless pair, acting so self-righteous. Anyone who didn't know better would think I was the scumbag who had heartlessly abandoned Victoria. Perfect. I picked up the microphone and in front of everyone said coldly, Victoria Ainsworth, the bride at this wedding, was never supposed to be you. Victoria's face darkened, and she glared at me as if she wanted to tear me apart with her eyes. What did you say? She hissed through gritted teeth. I didn't look at her, continuing in a cold voice. Since everyone is here, including the hospital leadership and our colleagues, I'd like to invite you all to watch a short video. I snapped my fingers toward the backstage crew. The large screen behind me immediately lit up with security footage of Victoria and Ethan conspiring to cover up the surgical error that led to a patient's death. In an instant, the entire hall exploded into chaos. Victoria, seeing the footage, turned deathly pale and collapsed to the floor. How could this be? Chapter 5. As the crowd's accusations against her grew louder, Victoria panicked. On the verge of tears, she scrambled to explain, No, that's not it. Listen to me. None of this is real. It was Sincere. Sincere framed me. He deliberately edited this fake video. She struggled to her feet. Pointing at me, she cried out to the audience, He's jealous that I've been taking care of Eth, so he's trying to ruin us. Eth and I have always treated medicine with the utmost reverence. How could we possibly cause a patient's death? The video is an AI-generated deepfake. I watched her spout lie after lie, a cold smile on my face. Even with irrefutable evidence, she was still trying to deny it and drag me down with her. This extinguished the last shred of childhood affection I had for her. To make her case more convincing, Victoria turned to me with a piercing cry, Sincere, why are you doing this to me? Today was supposed to be our wedding, but you brought another woman here to humiliate me. And now you're using a fake video to destroy my reputation and Eth's. What are your real intentions? You're despicable by the end. Her voice had cracked, and tears streamed down her face. Her performance swayed some of the guests. They began to whisper among themselves, wondering if the video really was fake. Could they have been so bold? But I remained perfectly calm. As for the video's authenticity, I said coolly, I'll be sending copies to the hospital's technical analysis department and to the police. The truth will come out soon enough. Victoria, who had just breathed a sigh of relief, paled once again. Her anxiety and fear were plain to see. But I had no desire to waste any more time on her. Today was just an appetizer. The main course was yet to come. The entertainment portion of our evening is over. Now let the wedding continue. Victoria Ainsworth, take your man and get off the stage. My voice was devoid of any emotion, but Victoria stood frozen on the stage, refusing to move. She stared at my hand holding Grace's, her expression a mixture of pain and disbelief. Sincere, how could you do this to me? How could you? She demanded. We've known each other for 30 years. We were childhood sweethearts. You promised you would marry me. You swore an oath. I had no patience left for her drama. You used me as a shield for your precious Ethan, I said coldly. You locked me in that office and nearly got me killed. There's nothing left between us but hatred. Seeing my icy demeanor, Victoria tried to explain frantically. But you didn't die. She paused, her expression changing drastically as she quickly tried to correct herself. "No, that's not what I meant. Listen to me. That day it was because—" Before she could finish, I glanced impatiently at the security guards. "Get them out of here." The next moment, Victoria and Ethan were forcibly dragged off the stage. As they passed the table where the hospital director was sitting, she tried to plead, "Director, please don't believe him." The director cut her off gravely. "This incident is extremely serious and has had severe consequences. I will see to it that the truth is thoroughly investigated." The director didn't take a side, but his stern tone made his position clear. Victoria's face went white, her expression grim. She was escorted, dazed and defeated, to a table at the very back of the room where she watched the entirety of my wedding to Grace. After the ceremony, the guests began to leave. Grace was with her parents, handling the post-wedding arrangements. I was outside having a cigarette when Victoria appeared out of nowhere. She looked at me with a complex expression, all her previous arrogance gone. She just looked tired. "Sincere, we need to talk." Chapter 6. I looked at her, my face a mask of indifference, and waited. She took a deep breath. "Those videos. Don't send them out. I'm begging you. You know that if you do, Ethan and I will spend the rest of our lives in prison. You can't do this to me." Her voice was pleading, trembling and choked with emotion. "I know you're jealous of Eth. After this, I promise I'll cut off all contact with him. From now on, I'll be completely devoted to you, and I'll take care of you. I was always going to marry you. I really was. I never thought you would." Victoria suddenly burst into tears, sobbing as if her heart was broken. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand, just like she used to when we were kids. The old me might have found her clumsy and cute, and my heart would have softened, but now all I saw was a brilliant actress, sincere. We've known each other for over 30 years. How could I really watch you die? When that man rushed in, he was after Eth. I locked the door because I was afraid he would rush out and put more people in danger. Besides, security was already on their way. I knew you would be okay. I had felt nothing until she said that. But hearing her justification, I could no longer contain my anger. "You think someone who's been stabbed over 30 times will be okay?" I cut her off coldly. If it weren't for the emergency response and Grace getting the state's blood bank to intervene, I'd be a corpse right now. "Victoria, do you even have a heart when you say things like that?" As the words left my mouth, the absurdity of it all hit me. It was ironic. If she had a heart, she never would have done something so cruel in the first place. Just then, Grace came out to find me. I ignored Victoria completely and walked over to her. "Sincere," Victoria called out desperately. I didn't look back. Back in our new home, I sent the videos to the hospital and the police department. After I was done, I noticed Grace wasn't in the bedroom. I found her in the kitchen, cooking. Seeing me, Grace smiled. "You were so busy today you barely ate. I'm making you some noodles. You don't eat seafood or spicy food, right?" I was surprised she knew my dietary restrictions. Victoria, who I had spent 30 years with, never paid attention to such things. She was always pushing me to eat greasy food for Ethan's sake. Grace noticed my surprise and smiled. "I've been pursuing you for years." Of course I had to do my research. She said it casually, but the blush on her ears betrayed her shyness. "Thank you." I stepped forward to help. The small kitchen felt surprisingly warm and cozy with both of us in it. I couldn't help but think that happiness had been this close all along, and I had wasted so many years. After we finished eating, the doorbell rang. Grace went to open it. She froze. Before she could say a word, Victoria pushed past her and walked straight towards me. Tear tracks still stained her face, and her voice was hoarse. She got straight to the point. "Sincere, I'm begging you, don't send out the video." "I'll do anything you ask." I frowned. I glanced at the clock. It was already past 11 at night. I was about to tell her the video had already been sent, and she was wasting her time. But then Victoria pulled a bottle of pills from her pocket, her eyes fixed on me with a calm, manic intensity. "If you don't agree, I'll die in your house tonight. Sincere, we've loved each other for so many years. Are you really going to force me to do this?" I watched her coldly, trying to determine if she was serious or just putting on another act. From what I knew of Victoria, she was a calculatedly selfish person, unlikely to ever harm herself. "Say something sincere. Are you trying to push me to my death?" "Fine, you'll get your wish." Victoria twisted open the bottle and began pouring the pills into her mouth. Grace, standing nearby, was horrified and about to rush forward, but I held her back. I just watched Victoria, my expression cold and unmoving. Victoria swallowed dozens of pills, but I still didn't react. Suddenly she broke down, crying hysterically. Chapter 7. Sincere, what's wrong with you? You'd really just stand there and watch me die? You won't even try to protect me. You used to love me so much. Why did you change? You've changed. Victoria's sobs were gut-wrenching. I hadn't seen her like this in over a decade. This time it didn't feel like an act. It felt like a genuine accusation, as if she were a spurned lover. But what was the point? She hadn't loved me for a long time. What right did she have to demand that I continue loving her unconditionally? In the end, as I watched her break down with detached eyes, Victoria couldn't bear it any longer and left. The next day I went to the hospital for work, but as I approached the main entrance, I was stunned by the scene before me. It seemed like every news outlet in the city was there. A large crowd of onlookers had also gathered. They held banners that read, "Quack doctors kill," and chanted through megaphones, "Victoria and Ethan, get out." The hospital's security guards were completely overwhelmed. It was then that I saw the messages from Leo on my phone. The security footage of Victoria and Ethan was hacked and leaked online. Now the media is demanding a statement from the hospital. Luckily, I saw the commotion early enough to use the back entrance. From my office window, I had a clear view of the chaos at the main gate. Within 10 minutes, Victoria and Ethan were summoned by the hospital administration to give a public explanation. Victoria's face was white with fear at the sight of the massive crowd, but she forced herself to remain calm. "Everyone, please don't be misled by the video online," she said. "It's all fake, completely fabricated. That surgery was conducted according to standard procedures. You all know Ethan's capabilities. He just saved a patient's life recently. Have you already forgotten?" The next moment, someone from the crowd shouted back, "That was Dr. Clark who saved him." The video exposed everything. "You're still lying, you damn liar. You and Ethan were in this together. You framed Dr. Clark. You nearly got Dr. Clark killed." Victoria was completely flustered, stammering, "And no, that's not true. The videos are fake. You're being..." Before she could finish, someone threw a rotten vegetable at her. And Ethan, standing right beside her, was cowering, not saying a word. Victoria had been proud her whole life. She had never been humiliated like this. She desperately tried to get Ethan to speak. "Eth, say something, please. They don't believe me." Tears welled up in her eyes, and her clothes were a mess. Reporters shoved microphones in Ethan's face, bombarding him with questions. "Tell us, what is the truth about the surgery? Did you and Victoria Ainsworth conspire to deceive the public?" Victoria looked at Ethan, her eyes filled with hope. The next moment, Ethan took a microphone and announced to everyone present, "Everything you've suspected. It's all true that surgery was indeed a failure because of Victoria's mistake, and it resulted in the patient's death." Chapter 8. In an instant, the scene erupted. Curses and shouts flew from all directions. Victoria was stunned. She pointed at Ethan, speechless, only managing to get out a single word. "You." Rotten vegetables and eggs rained down on them. Ethan, terrified, shouted into the microphone, "Victoria forced me to do all of it. She's been in a relationship with Dr. Sincere Clark for years, but she has been harassing me privately. She forced me to perform a surgery that was beyond my skill level, promising she would take responsibility if anything went wrong. But she was incompetent and killed the patient. I bear some responsibility in this, but the person most at fault is her." His voice was loud and clear, broadcasted through the microphone to the entire crowd. Ethan pointed at Victoria, his voice dripping with accusation. "Victoria, stop denying it. A patient's life is still a life. For days you forced me to lie, forced me to do things I didn't want to do. I've had enough. A doctor duty is to care for their patients. When you chose this profession, you should have taken responsibility for every single surgery. Just confess." As his words fell, tears of pure rage streamed down Victoria's face. She lunged forward, trying to grab the microphone. "You're lying, Ethan. How could you do this to me?" she shrieked. But Ethan shoved her to the ground. With a look of profound disappointment, he said, "What did I do to you? I'm trying to convince you to turn over a new leaf. Victoria, I am willing to take responsibility for my part in this. I hope you'll stop deceiving your self-betrayal." A stab in the back of the highest order. Victoria never imagined that Ethan, the man she trusted most, would betray her at such a critical moment. She was on the verge of a complete breakdown, but having drawn the crowd's fury, she had no chance to defend herself. A torrent of curses washed over her. She lay on the ground, questioning Ethan with a look of agony and disbelief. You bastard, you bastard!" Some of the more aggressive members of the crowd rushed forward and pushed her down, forcing her to kneel for the deceased patient. Ethan, however, had managed to escape the crowd's wrath with his speech. He stood by and watched coldly as everything unfolded. Soon Victoria's head was bleeding. Her voice grew weak. Finally, the police arrived to restore order. They arrested the assailants and helped Victoria to her feet. Everyone thought Victoria would leave. But instead, after being freed, she weakly picked up a microphone from the ground. In front of everyone, she said to the police, "I want to file a report. Ethan Jones, in the course of his medical practice, prescribed wrong medications and deliberately guided patients to purchase expensive drugs from partner pharmacies to receive kickbacks. Furthermore, he has intentionally harmed other organs during surgeries to compel patients to return for further treatment. I have proof every word, though faint, was crystal clear." Ethan, who had been enjoying the show, went pale. Chapter 9. He rushed forward and slapped Victoria across the face. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. The next second, a police officer kicked Ethan's legs out from under him and pinned him to the ground. Take them away. With Victoria and Ethan being led away, the chaotic scene finally came to an end. The reporters outside dispersed. Inside the hospital, my colleagues were buzzing with gossip. Some looked at me awkwardly but couldn't resist asking, "Dr. Clark, do you still have feelings for Victoria Ainsworth?" I shook my head. I just felt a sense of irony watching that scene unfold. The man Victoria had risked my life to protect had publicly betrayed her. It was all too fitting. That same day, the hospital issued a formal notice. Victoria Ainsworth and Ethan Jones are terminated, and their medical licenses are hereby revoked. A full investigation into unethical practices within the hospital will be conducted. I wasn't worried. I had always conducted myself with integrity. My only failing was not reporting Victoria's misconduct sooner. The next morning, as Grace and I were finishing breakfast before work, the police arrived at our door with Victoria. Due to her cooperation, the truth had come out. As part of a deal, she had requested to see me one last time before going to prison. The moment she saw me, Victoria's eyes turned red. She tried to control her emotions, but tears began to fall. She gazed at me, her voice soft. "Sincere, I'm sorry. Can you forgive me?" I remained silent. A tear rolled down her cheek. She sniffled. She forced a smile. "I forgot, you're married now. Ever since we were kids, I always thought you would be my future husband. I made one wrong step and then another and another. Ethan, he's not a good person, and I hurt you for his sake." She wiped away her tears and gave a bitter smile. "I brought this on myself. I accept it, but Sincere, I might never see you again after this. Could you hug me one last time?" Victoria looked at me with pleading eyes. It was the first time in 30 years she had ever asked me to hug her. In the past, I was always the one to initiate, and she would reluctantly agree. With Ethan, she was a different person entirely. Now, we were over. A hug was out of the question. "I'm sorry." I put my arm around Grace's shoulder, making my position clear. I had a wife now. Victoria looked at me, hurt. After a long moment, she asked, "Not even for a second? You can't?" I nodded silently. Tears welled in Victoria's eyes. "Okay, I won't force you." With that, she covered her face and left. For some reason, a heavy feeling settled in my chest. I couldn't quite place it. Perhaps it was sadness. After all, we had grown up together. But in the end, I said nothing more. During the day, I worked as usual. I had just finished with a patient when I received a call from the police department. "Victoria Ainsworth has taken Ethan Jones hostage on the roof of the Grandview Mall. She's threatening to jump Chapter 10. She wants to see you. They asked me to go and try to talk her down." I rushed to the scene. There, on the edge of the rooftop, stood Victoria. At her feet lay Ethan, who was clearly in a bad state. The wind howled around them. It felt like at any second she would jump, taking Ethan with her. When Victoria saw me, her numb expression suddenly came to life. She smiled at me, a look of pleasant surprise on her face. It was the innocent smile from our childhood, free of all the scheming and manipulation. "Sincere, you came to see me. What are you doing?" I tried to stay calm, my voice firm. Victoria smiled, atoning for my sins. "Sincere, I was wrong. I was deceived by this animal and hurt the man I love most. Sincere, I'm getting revenge for you." She was smiling, but tears glistened in the corners of her eyes. Ethan, lying at her feet, had been injected with some kind of drug. He was limp and weak. He was still begging feebly, "Victoria, don't do this. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." He tried to escape, but Victoria's foot was firmly on his hand. She toyed with a knife in her other hand. "Ethan, you made me lose everything. You almost got Sincere killed. You led me on and you betrayed my trust," she said softly. "Go to hell. I will pay for my mistakes as well." With that, she plunged the dagger into Ethan's chest, again and again. After 30 stabs, Ethan finally stopped breathing, his eyes wide with terror. Then Victoria kicked his body off the roof. I was too stunned to speak. The next moment, Victoria turned, looked at me, and smiled one last time. No, the word had barely left my lips when she jumped. I rushed to the edge just in time to hear a sickening thud. On the pavement below, a splash of crimson bloomed. I collapsed to my knees on the roof. It was a long time before I could move. A week later, I attended Victoria's funeral. After it was all over, I brought Grace to her grave and placed a bouquet of flowers there. The past is like smoke. I wish her peace in the next life. Farewell forever. The end.